This year, in Catholic Studies 10, we explored many of the beliefs and historical facts of Catholicism. The lessons we learned, whether it be about people with exceptionalities, the subject of death, how the Gospels came to be, the death of Jesus, or the study of our morals, did not only give us facts, but also taught us lessons that can be used to benefit our future. The one subject that was not related to the Bible was the subject of people with exceptionalities. We had many small conversations every now and then, and before these lessons I was very unaware of how many people were affected with mental disabilities, and how many of these people were treated very poorly. This lesson really opened my eyes to the issues surrounding these people and made me aware that I must be a little more sensitive around this subject. Near the start of the year, we learned about the 4 Gospels in the Bible. Each Gospel is written in the perspective of one of the 4 evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. These 4 writers developed their stories by watching Jesus and tried to interpret Jesus' prayers and passages and connect them to our lives. Because they are all different people, they each have a different perspective of the lessons Jesus taught us. Not only did learning about these Gospels give me knowledge of their origins, but it opened my eyes to certain situations. Connecting this theme to my life, I can see that even though if I think my view on something is right, there may be more than one way to look at things. And instead of arguing with someone on who is right, I can take their view along with mine to create a better understanding of something. Another lesson we learned in regards to the Bible was the death of Jesus. Many people told stories of Jesus' death and the moments leading up to it, and these stories have been put together to create the Station of the Cross. It gives us an explanation of from when Jesus is condemned, to him carrying the cross, all the way to him being placed in the tomb. Each station has its own lesson, but the most important to me are the 1st, 5th, and 10th. In the first station, Jesus is condemned to death by Pontius Pilate. We learn that by being wrongfully condemned, Jesus makes the commitment to enter our lives forever, and that he says yes to God, placing his life in God's hands. To me, this is a representation of how I would like to live. As Jesus enters my life, I would like to enter his. I can use this station as a symbol of courage to say yes to God and put my life in God's hands just as Jesus did. In the 5th station, Simon of Cyrene helps Jesus carry the cross. We learned that this station shows that Jesus is human as he struggles and needs help. Using this lesson to help me in life, I now see that help from others is something all humans need. I should not be ashamed to ask for help. After all, Jesus needed it. Along with this, it shows me to be grateful for all help I receive, big or small. In the 10th station, Jesus is stripped of his clothes. This was done to strip him of any dignity and pride. Jesus is vulnerable and defenseless and has nothing to protect him. And as they stare at him, he looks up at the heavens. This station is very important to me, for if Jesus can get through this, I can also get through times of insecurity. Also, this station teaches me that I can always turn to God for help in times of defenselessness. Another subject we learned about was moral dilemmas and how to face them. We learned that everyone faces some sort of dilemma in every day of their life, and that some dilemmas pose a greater challenge than others. Through the story of Abraham sacrificing his son, we learned that overcoming some dilemmas can be rewarding. Then we were all faced with moral dilemmas that we each had to overcome. By having to make a choice regarding the moral dilemmas we had in class and putting serious thought into my choice, I was able to learn a little bit about the person I am. Along with this, I learned that the best way to overcome a moral dilemma is put some serious thought in deciding which choice you feel is best. Learning this will help me overcome many dilemmas that I will face throughout my life. The conversation of death was the lesson that fell under the subject of moral dilemmas. In this lesson, we discussed the many questions and fears that came with death, and we learned that nobody really has the answers. We were taught of the sovereign acts of God, which describe him as having complete power over everything in this world, including life and death, which led us to some answers of the mystery of death. This lesson was very impactful on me, as I am one who greatly fears death. Even though I know it is a definite part of life, it still manages to eat away at me. By reading about God's sovereignty, I was able to deepen my faith, creating more belief in a beautiful afterlife. Part of God's sovereignty is his control over death, and if I have a strong faith in God, he will be my answer to death. Knowing God is the answer to death, in that he has experienced it and risen again, gives me great comfort in my days. The subject of death was the most impactful for me because it really deepened my faith by showing some of God's sovereignty and knowledge of death. And this knowledge and stronger foundation helps me live my life with less fear of death. All the subjects and lessons experienced in this class helped guide me in life. They gave me courage, acted as examples of how I want to live my life, helped me with decision making, and helped in one of my biggest fears. But above all, I learned how beneficial being in a positive environment is to the enjoyment of a class. By being in such an open environment, I learned that having a healthy classroom makes a class much more enjoyable and easy to learn in. After experiencing the acceptance of this classroom, I will now make an attempt to create the same welcoming environment of this class in all my classes. This class shows that having a family-like environment makes a class easy to come to each and every day.